All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, we knew that someone would be willing to do it as far as attempting to replace Nick Saban at Alabama. And after Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Mike Norvell all decided to remain at their respective schools, Alabama went to the Pacific Northwest to find their next head coach as Kalen DeBoer is leaving Washington to test out the difficult waters of the SEC. Now, DeBoer has won at each job along the way, which included him going 25 and 3 over the last 2 years at Washington, where he just led the Huskies to a Pac-12 championship as well as a berth in the national championship game. Now, Alabama had to act fast, as the news just broke obviously earlier this week, with Nick Saban's surprising departure from the school, and Alabama needed to act fast as they're looking to keep players as well as bring in more recruits. But, we talked about this earlier this week when the decision came down by Nick Saban to leave Alabama, as far as, the pressure at that school and then the expectations there with what Saban has just accomplished. It could possibly be intimidating to some coaches out there. But Kalen DeBoer said, you know what? I'm going to be up for this challenge. And of course, a lot of people are going to say, well, is Kalen DeBoer ready for life in the SEC? You think about the recruiting aspect, the contest from a Saturday to Saturday basis. Listen, I know that Kalen DeBoer is not from that region per se, but you just look at what he did in the Pac 12 at Washington. All right. You're talking about a guy that was able to sift through the rubble, if you will. This was arguably the best year that the Pac-12 has had since they went to 12 members, a very competitive league. And Washington just became the first school in Pac-12 history since the conference expanded to 12 teams to go undefeated, both overall and in the conference. So Kalen DeBoer knows how to get it done, in adverse situations. Granted, the Pac-12 and SEC, they're two different beasts. And of course, now that you're adding Texas and Oklahoma to the mix for this coming year, it's going to make it that much more difficult. It's going to be interesting to see, will the Bama faithful be able to exercise patience with Kalen DeBoer, because Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban. And I think people need to understand that. But also at the same time, this is an Alabama program that has not lost more than 3 games in a season since Nick Saban's first year, which was 2006. And you got to go back to 2010 to find the last time that Alabama lost 3 games in a season. These are the standards, if you will, that have been set forth by Nick Saban on this program. People got to realize, you know what, Kalen DeBoer is not going to be Nick Saban. There could be some bumps in the road along the way. We could be talking about Alabama not in contention for a national championship every year, even in the expanded college football playoff. But at the end of the day, this is just the nature of the beast. For Washington, this is a very tough loss, because what a difference of emotions a week makes. A week ago, we're looking at Kalen DeBoer getting his program ready to take the field against Michigan as they had a chance to win the national championship. Clearly, that did not work out for Washington as they lost by 3 touchdowns to Michigan on Monday night. And it was all about, okay, now Kalen DeBoer has to get his program ready for the transition to the Pac-10, from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. You're losing Michael Penix, you're losing Roman Dunze, of course, to the NFL draft. And then the news broke later in the week that Nick Saban was stepping down at Alabama, which was a shock to a lot of people. And then, of course, Alabama had to act fast. And now Kalen DeBoer has left Seattle for Tuscaloosa. So it's very, it's been a whirlwind on the college football scene. And for Washington, it was going to be a tough transition to the Big Ten anyway. Now you've got to go out there. You've got to find yourself a head coach. You got to try to, maintain your players. You got key players such as Jabbar Muhammad, as well as Will Rogers, the quarterback who just transferred from Mississippi State, who are now in the portal after the announcement of DeBoer leaving Washington. So it's going to be very important for Washington to try to keep their heads above water as they look to go on for life after Kalen DeBoer. Some names that you could possibly hear, in my opinion, UNLV coach Barry Odom, who has done a tremendous job turning around the fortunes of that Rebels program. Of course, he was let go a couple of years ago by Missouri, landed on his feet at UNLV, and of course, the rest is history. I'm going to throw a name out there, and some people might agree with this, some people might not. I'm going to go Pete Carroll, who just, basically, step down, if you will, as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He's 72 years old, but he definitely still wants to coach. And we know that Pete Carroll can get it done on the college scene. We know that Pete Carroll is not afraid of the big time stage, whether it be the pros or college. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe, just maybe, the folks in Seattle obviously, wouldn't have to go that far to pique his interest to see if he's interested in the job. But nonetheless, those are two names, in my opinion, to keep an eye on. And I am sure that there will be others for the University of Washington. Like I said, this was going to happen. Saban's departure meant some coaches were about to get paid. We saw Mike Norvell get an extension at Florida State. I'm sure there's going to be something in the works for Dan Lanning at Oregon and Steve Sarkisian at Texas, respectively. It's one of those where it's the fear sometimes of losing what you have and having to start over. And of course, those coaches just got paid, and some are going to get more going to get paid as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if DeBoer is going to be the right guy at Alabama. And like I said before, I think the big thing is the folks there have to exercise patience. He's not going to be Nick Saban. I don't care who you brought in to replace Nick Saban. They're not going to be Nick Saban. You have to understand that. And this is a transition period time for this program. So at the end of the day, Alabama, like I said, needed to act fast. They got their guy in Kalen DeBoer. He's a tremendous guy as far as turning things around. And I think he has the opportunity to do some good things in Tuscaloosa. It's going to help him at the quarterback position as far as recruiting, whether it be just recruits out of high school or the transfer portal, due to the fact that people are going to see what he just did with Michael Penix at Washington, what he did with that offense for the University of Washington. I think that's going to allow him to go out there and get kids. And the thing is, the transfer portal, we all know, is a game changer. It's not like you're directly starting from scratch when you take over a college program now. If you can go out there and find your kids in the portal, you can go and turn things around very quickly. Look at what DeBoer did at Washington as far as he turned things around so quickly after things went south under Jimmy Lake. So I'm looking at it like this. I'm not going to say I'm optimistic or pessimistic, but nonetheless, I do think that the board does have a good opportunity ahead of him. We know about the resources in Tuscaloosa, second to none. So let's see how this football marriage between DeBoer and Alabama are going to work. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out now to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.